Hey, everybody, it's Eric J. Olson. We are live for another edition of the Journey to $100 Million podcast. So today we are interviewing someone who is a lawyer in the energy industry. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk business. We're going to talk about how he started his business, some pivots, some lessons learned, and then we're going to take a little snippet from this and turn it into one of our daily episodes that you hear on the podcast platforms. And we're also on YouTube at this point. We have our own channel that we've just stood up at Journey to $100 Million. We are a little bit late today. We were supposed to start about, I don't even want to say it, 15 minutes ago or so. Technical difficulties. So it's all right. It happens. All right. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Benjamin Holliday. Hey, Ben, what's happening?
Hey, guys. How's it going? It's just another day. Just another day in San Antonio.
Yeah. So San Antonio. So little background for everybody. Ben and I are both both members of the Entrepreneurs Organization, also known as EO. And we've never actually met in person, but EO has a Slack group where the members of EO, all business owners, kind of share tips and tricks and experience sharing. And we connected on there, and I asked him to be on the podcast. So I appreciate it, Ben.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, man. So how long have you been in EO for?
So I joined in late 2015. And so you're right about 6 years. I've had I've been in the same forum as the backbone of EO. So I've had the same group of guys. We've met every month, but it's been a extremely positive experience for me, not just in forum, but I've also had the opportunity to serve on the board. I was chapter president a few years ago. And so I've had a lot of opportunities to form relationships, not only here in the Texas and the central region, but really across the world.
Yeah, I have mad respect for you for being the president. I've been on the board for the last few years, and the president position seems like it's an awful lot of extra work. That's for sure.
You have to dedicate pretty much a day a week, and not only are you leading the organization, I think you're counselor in chief.
Yeah.
Things, but it's overwhelmingly positive experience. I mean, just the learning and the leadership growth that they provide, the support and training. I mean, we were able to go to a 3-day president's retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona, where we had 2 days worth of training, 1 day worth of fun, and just getting to meet people from Canada, Mexico, all over the United States, all in the same boat. I mean, it's priceless.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't been the president. I have heard that about the president's retreats. The board retreats are like that. There's also the annual worldwide conference. That one's really, really good to attend. But something else that I think is really good with EO is the Accelerator learning events. So for anyone who's watching that's not familiar with EO, in order to get into EO, you have to be the founder or owner of a company that does $1 million or up in revenue per year. If you're below that, but you're still above $250,000, there's a program called the Accelerator. And as part of being in the Accelerator, there are, at least in my chapter, it's probably the same throughout. I just don't want to make the assumption. There are 4 day-long learning events where a trainer is flown in, and you learn about things like cash flow and people and strategy. And I attended a bunch of those right after I joined EO. For like 2 years, I attended every single one of them. And that was a huge benefit. I learned a tremendous amount, and it led to things like identifying that we wanted to grow our agency to $100 million or more. So yeah, like at the president level, there's benefits. At the global level, there's benefits. And then at the lower levels, there's benefits. It's a pretty impressive program. It's one of those things that I think I'll be a member of for probably for life, frankly.
Yeah, no, same here. I mean, and it's about the people. I mean, you learn a lot, and it's really fun to watch people as they come into EO, go through their journey and how they wake up and they realize all the things that they didn't know, because you join thinking, I'm at this point in my business, whatever point that is, where you realize you need help, right? You need a group alongside you, and to watch people eyes open to the realizations of all the learning that's going on. It's outstanding. You talk about Accelerator. I mean, some of our best members came through the Accelerator program. We have a goal here in San Antonio where we want to graduate them in 3 years. And some of our best board members right now, I'm still on the board, are former Accelerator members. So yeah, it's a great opportunity. I mean, just the people I've met, you know, you couldn't get that kind of access anywhere else. And you mentioned the Slack channel. You know, during COVID, when things started shutting down, there's a Slack channel with 13,000 members of business owners literally distributed all over the world. And so we had people comparing situations, but you had people saying, I need 2 million, you know, N95 masks to Hong Kong. And somebody says, well, I'm in, you know, Vietnam, I can manufacture them for you or whatever. And it's just been, I refer to the Slack channel almost like the horn of plenty. If you need something, you go to the Slack channel and the Slack channel is going to provide it.
Yeah. We see some really interesting requests there. Like, you know, a lot of times people, they'll preface their requests with, this is crazy and probably no one can help me, but, and then they have this request and usually someone chimes in. They're like, yeah, I can help you with that.
Yep.
That's neat.
Yep. Awesome.
Well, hey, yeah, I guess enough about EO at this point. But you know, we actually don't know much about you. So Ben, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, and so Ben Holliday, I'm an attorney. I'm in San Antonio. I have a law firm, and we work on oil and gas matters. And I started in the industry. I went to law school. I was telling Eric before I went to law school. I thought it was really interesting, but I really didn't want to be a lawyer. You know, if you'd have come to me on graduation day and said, hey, here, I'll wipe out your debt, but you give your law degree back, I think I would have taken the deal. And I'm glad I didn't. I did, the one area that did interest me, and I took a job right out of law school in a non-legal position, was in the oil and gas industry. It was fascinating. I took a class the last semester of law school, and I thought, well, this is really what I want to do, but I don't want to be an attorney. And so pretty quickly found my way in-house to a company that was run by one of these stereotypical Texas oil men, no ideas, too crazy, you know, we'll go do it. And, you know, I was 27 years old and I had this astronomical budget, and whatever crazy ideas I could come up with, if we could execute on it, he'd let us run with it. And so that went on for about a couple of years. And then we approached him, the owner of the company, and said, hey, you know, we're getting all this like really marginal legal advice. Why don't you let us do it? And, you know, looking back, it's like one of the worst pitches of all time. We said, look, it can't get any worse. Just let us do it. And then somehow that worked, right? And so we started doing it nights and weekends. And if you know anything about the energy industry, it's all tied to commodity price. Commodity price is good, business is good. If commodity price is bad, business is bad. So the commodity price tanked. I had to offer to move to the corporate headquarters in Texas. And my wife gave it 2 thumbs down. We weren't moving to Midland. So decided to start an oil company. Actually, we took off 6 months, sold everything, went and backpacked all over the world. And that was a whole big fun adventure.
Wow.
People said we were crazy. And maybe we were looking back, we were. Come back, start a law firm and focused on energy in the middle of a, you know, energy glut. Also seemed like a bad idea, but both of them worked out, right? And yeah, so we've had a law firm for 10 years, and then during COVID, we realized there was this other sector of the market that was really, really underserved. So we work for energy companies, and energy companies have incredibly sophisticated geoscience teams and economic teams, and they have a lot of information about what they're going to do. They will obtain the rights from mineral owners, and mineral owners in many cases are at a massive informational disadvantage because they don't have armies of geologists, geophysicists, engineers, all those things. And so they're in many cases making decisions blind, and they'll resort to calling lawyers to help them. And sometimes you need a lawyer, but sometimes you don't. Sometimes you need someone that can proactively, you know, fix your problem for you, keep you out of a situation where a lawyer is required. And we just found that segment to be grossly underrepresented. So we pivoted and opened up a mineral asset management company during COVID to help meet that need. And so that's where we are now, is juggling between the two.
Cool. Let me take a second to share your website. All right, here we go. So massiveminerals.com. So I think you referred to your clients as mineral rights owners. Is that correct?
For the mineral, yes, for massive minerals, our typical client is either going to be with individual, maybe it's an institution or a nonprofit that owns significant mineral assets, but they don't have the bandwidth or the expertise to monetize them correctly. So the way that would happen is, you're a nonprofit and someone leaves you in their estate a ranch and has actively producing minerals underneath it. There's a lot of sophisticated decisions that need to be made regarding those minerals. And again, there's not a real good opportunity set for people out there that can manage those on behalf of other people.
Okay.
And so that's where we've stepped in to fill that void.
So it would, like, let's say I owned 10 acres.
Mm-hmm.
Would I be someone that, and I didn't have like any mining operation or oil drilling or anything like that going on at the time. I just had 10 acres and I was approached by an energy company. Would I be like one of your clients or like someone that could work with you? Or is it someone that's more like they've already had mining activities? And
Yeah, it's typically someone that'll have a larger holding than that. I mean, absolutely, we're happy to help anybody that feels like they would need it. But typically, this will be someone that owns mineral rights that are being developed, and the value of the estate or the mineral rights are probably going to be somewhere between the north of $5 million mark. So they're receiving significant production payments each month, and they want to know, am I being paid correctly? Are we being good stewards of that income? Should we be doing different things other than just cashing checks? What are we thinking about the future? How long are my wells going to produce? These sorts of decisions that we can help guide them through.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess there's lots of different ways that you could get paid for allowing a company onto your property to extract the resources. It could be like just a fixed rent, right? Mm-hmm. Every month, or it could be a percentage of the value of what they extract, or maybe both, probably both, right? Is that kind of what we're talking about here as far as helping them decide?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, so typically people will step in after activity's begun, right? And the way mineral owners are generally compensated, they'll sign a lease and they will get a percentage of the income that's produced. So that's one stream of income. But there's also really important other streams of income when the company is using the surface. For instance, are they utilizing water in their operations? If they need to come on and build roads, like what kind of roads are we going to build? Maybe there's opportunities to have fences built around certain operations areas, and those typically are only thought of as they occur and defensively, sort of like after the fact. Whereas with proactive planning, not only can you organize those activities on behalf of the clients far more effectively, but you can also extract more value.
Cool. All right. That's awesome. I got it. All right. Why now, or why during the pandemic? Like, why? You said pivot, and I'm wondering, I guess, two questions. Was it a pivot almost away from the law group, or was this an additional thing that you're doing? And then why during the pandemic? Like what was different about pandemic times that caused you to say, now's the time?
Sure. It's not so much a pivot away as it's an augment, right? It's a different segment. The law firm typically serves operating companies, so companies that are going on to do the oil and gas extraction, and has things tightened up. If anybody's in the energy space or investing in energy space, I mean, it's been a difficult year. I mean, there's no way around it. It's been a difficult year, and so as we started to need to replace workflows, this is an idea. This is always something we've known we could do, but we were all, maybe we're just too busy, or whatever excuse we made up not to serve this market. And we realized, well, this is a difficult time for everybody. Everybody's having to figure out what the new normal looks like. The old assumptions of how you monetize your assets are being thrown out the window. In addition to the demand destruction from COVID, now we're entering an era where renewables are taking on a greater importance, and so the assumption that I'm producing oil and gas from my estate and that's going to continue forever, it may not be valid. So in some extent, we need to think about, well, what does the next 20 years look like? And if you as an asset owner need to pivot out of the space, you're going to need someone to guide you. And that someone, you're probably better served by technical experts like we bring to the table versus going to a large investment bank where they may or may not know the nuances of your I would say that it wasn't so much a pivot as it opened our eyes to the opportunity, and then it gave us the time to actually reach out and grab that opportunity.
Got it. Yeah, that's cool. What was it like during the initial phase of coronavirus? Yeah, where what was it like? The gas oil futures went negative, meaning they had. Well, I mean, it probably didn't happen, but you could get paid to receive oil.
Yes. No, it was awful. I mean, I'm here. Part of the technical difficulties, I appreciate everybody's patience are on my end, and so I'm here in my home office. I was here on that day. It was April 20th. It was a little over a year ago, and oil just starts dropping like a rock. It gets down to like $2 a barrel, and I called my wife up and I said, "Hey, you got to see this. Oil's at $1 a barrel. Oil's at 10 cents a barrel. Oh my God, oil's -5." And I just kept hitting refresh on my computer, and screenshotting the commodity price. At one point, it got to -7, and I hit refresh, and it plopped all the way down to -32. And I sat back in this exact same chair. I sat back in this chair. I just stared at the screen. I reached up. I just closed the laptop. And I told my wife, I said, I'm going for a walk. Like Forrest Gump, like I'm going out and I don't know when I'm coming back. And I just walked around the neighborhood. I just couldn't wrap my mind around a price, an industry in which all activity is based on the price. And all of a sudden now we have a negative price where not only does the world not want what we produce, they will pay us not to produce, you have to pay them to take what you're producing. And so, yeah, that was a wild day. I don't think anything happened in the industry for a whole week. I think most people were probably out milling around the neighborhood.
That was. I mean, I'm not in the oil industry, but that was wild to see that, and certainly a lot of people that I know were talking about it, and I was like, well, shit, I wonder if I can get paid to take this oil. But then it's
everybody with the swim pool.
Yeah, it's like okay, but then you got to do something with it. And I guess that's really the problem, right? Clearly you have to be like an industrial company with tanks and whatnot to receive it and hold it for a while, and it's not cheap stuff to do. Yeah. So people like me ain't going to get into the business then.
Yeah, no, you would it would have been a bad day to try to get into the industry. But yeah, the guys that really won, because literally the driver behind that was a concern that there are no tanks. We don't know where we're going to put it. There is nowhere to store the oil because you can't just shut off production. When an oil well is produced, I mean, you can, but it's not that simple. And so when oil is produced, it needs to be, it's almost like a just-in-time inventory system where it needs to keep being produced. And so the people that made out like bandits on that were anyone that had an offshore tanker that could just take oil and just park it out, somewhere. And those guys did really well. They did actually. They were the guys sitting around saying, "Hey, I have a big ship. I can, fill it full of oil and park it out in the Gulf of Mexico."
So you said that was April 11th. That was the date?
Yeah, it was April 20th. That's the date the futures contracts come out each month, and so that's the date the new prices post. And so that was the day that everybody realized they were in big trouble.
It's interesting that the date. For me, it was March 16th, 2020. Okay. That was when coronavirus really took hold here in Virginia, and when the business world panicked. And by 9:30, my phone was ringing off the hook, and one of the first calls was from our largest advertisers, actually the largest at the time. And we're in the marketing and advertising industry, which is very vulnerable to things like recessions. And so as I saw this kind of building up over the course of only like a week before that, I was like, oh boy, like this is going to be a big test. And we were tested. And that very first day, the largest advertiser said, we're done. Like, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you want to just pause? No, like pause indefinitely. Like, I don't know if we're ever coming back. I don't know if the world's coming back.
Right.
It was crazy times, man. That's for sure. And that for us, that lasted about, well, I got a bunch of calls like that in 2 or 3 days. And it was just pure panic. And frankly, just pretty freaking depressed, kind of like you, sitting back. And you know what?
What are you gonna do? You know, what are you gonna do? And that, yeah, and that's where the value, to I don't want to make this all about EO, but the value of EO really shone through in that time, because everyone, no matter what industry you're, well, with certain limited exceptions, virtually every industry was hit with the same thing, right? And so through the Slack channel, you just had people communicating, getting on Zoom calls. Maybe it's just commiserating, maybe it's just providing help where you needed it. But as we were all, not only was there demand destruction for everyone's businesses, but you're also shut in your house. So you can't get out and talk to people or take proactive action in the way that you normally would know how to do.
Yeah.
And so things were falling apart and you're kind of locked by yourself. And so having EO and that community it gave me a lot of comfort and help and direction as I was trying to reach out, because we got a lot of those same calls too, right? If you looked at U.S. oil and gas activity, not only are we tied to the commodity price, but there's something called the rig count, like how many rigs are drilling in the United States. That shows how much work there is out there. At the beginning of 2020, there was 900 rigs. About a month and a half later, there was about 200 rigs. And so that's the cliff face that the activity level fell off of. And, it was hard enough to get through it. I can't imagine doing it without a, supporting community like EO
Yeah.
to help out.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, and you're right about like the social change that happened immediately with coronavirus at the same time. Right. And the impact on people and their feelings about life and work and everything else, And so we had a lot of things colliding at the same time. Massive change happening in the business, massive change happening in your daily activities. And yeah, the community was extremely helpful. I'm part of a mastermind as well that's outside of EO, and they were extremely helpful as well. So, I would say, yes, EO was massively helpful when it came to things like the PPP and the EIDL that was coming out around, a little bit later after the time frame that we're talking about, but came out really soon in the pandemic. EO was helpful. This mastermind was very, very helpful. And so really it was just about, to make it a little more general, was surrounding yourself in a community of like-minded people, right? Your network, and relying on your network. I think that's really important. And a lot of people that I meet, unfortunately, don't cultivate a network until they need it. Yep. And when they need it is not the time to cultivate that network. You need that network in place long before you actually need to call on it.
Absolutely. It's like insurance, right? You can't buy insurance after you've had a wreck. And so if I could go back, there's lots of things I tell my younger self, that 27-year-old guy that went to work for the oil company, there's lots of wisdom I could impart to him. Maybe just start mining Bitcoin, I don't know. But, one thing I realized that I underappreciated then was the value of network and to go cultivate it, like you said, before you need it. Because now in the way, whether it's asset owners for massive minerals or it's oil and gas companies for the law firm, it's all who in relationships. I could put up a billboard tomorrow and it would get zero ROI on it. It's all about, do people trust me? Do they find me trustworthy? Have they worked with me before? Is there a positive reference? And it takes, months, if not years, to develop those relationships. And then they're really handy in an unexpected time like COVID. Nobody saw that coming. And then to be able to draw down on those was a saving grace for us in many respects.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, Ben, I really appreciate your time. Let me show the audience how they can get in touch with you. So you can go to massiveminerals.com, or you can find Ben. He goes by Benjamin Holliday on LinkedIn. So, hey, Ben, appreciate your time. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, Eric, thanks for having me on.
You got it. All right.